What's going, buddy?
Buddy, good to see you, man. Been a while.
How's your life? Yeah, man. How's your life? You okay?
Yeah, pretty good. Life's yeah, I guess we haven't talked since COVID, hey?
Yep. It's almost
Yeah.
like we went through something crazy. I'm just trying to see if I can figure out how to turn the volume down on the headphones here because it's a little.
Oh, sure. Maybe it's just on the top right of the keyboard there. Can you just toggle down on those
Yeah, we
buttons up
looked,
there?
but it looks like because he's on PC here, it's hold. Oh, there you go.
Ah,
Oh, there we go.
nice.
There you go. Sick dicks. I think that did. Let me just try again here, Paul. 2 secs. You talk again there, Todd?
Yeah.
There we go.
Check
Thanks,
one,
Paul.
two, hey.
Okay.
Beauty. Yeah, man.
shit.
So I guess let's tackle that. I wasn't even sure if I was going to talk to you about COVID. It's been, a couple of years now, but
What's COVID, man? Never heard of it.
how did you fare through the whole ordeal?
Can you hear me still?
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, I was busier than I've ever been in my life. And I think continue to be. There was really it felt like, because we were in the midst of a tour when it all went down, and there was a part of me that as soon as I got home, I'm pretty convinced I had it straight out of the gate. They took me to the hospital as soon as we got out of the Graceland is where we left from. And I was in quarantine for a couple of weeks, and during that time I was like, I guess I felt like I saw the writing on the wall. I thought the industry's already shot, and you compound that with the pandemic and how am I going to feed the family essentially. So I went into kind of red alert mode, and we started doing a lot of streaming concerts from the house, and we did a bunch of charity concerts on that front as well that were successful, and that sort of put me in a position where I could then just keep doing that format. And so I did a ton of those things, and then I wrote, and I did a really big project with 60 collaborators that was very strange, called The Puzzle. And then I did a record called Lightwork, and none of these things were expected, as as you well know. And then and during that time I moved as well and built a house, and I've been
Just pile it on.
Dude, it's been insane. But I'm almost at a baseline now in a strange way that I can start to reconnect with where things were and start to take stock of what's next, right?
Yeah,
How about yourself?
We're kind of all like that, I think. Like, same for me, man. Like, I almost stopped the podcast because of COVID and losing sponsors, and like I'm spending all this time, and I'm missing my kids' hockey practice, or
Totally, brother.
I can't do this. Like, fuck, what's it worth? Like, I don't get me wrong, I love doing the podcast, but like, if it's gonna make it so that I can't see my kids, and
Well, I think
be
that
compensated, right? Have to be.
I think that experience is one that a lot of people sort of share, right? There's a sense that amidst all the chaos of the pandemic, it became clear where the priorities should be.
Yeah.
I think, although I was very busy during the course of the pandemic, I was also around my family constantly, and I was also around my parents, and so I had an opportunity to kind of kill two birds with one stone in that sense. But there was a lot of people I know that just kind of quit the industry. They just realized that the nature of the work up to that point is just untenable now. You can't just continue beating yourself over the head with work when you see mortality so clearly, right?
Dude, it totally. And over that time, I probably talked to like 50, 60 musicians, right? And like a good chunk of that number just lost their creativity, lost their muse, man.
I didn't find I lost it. I just found that I had to be very strategic with when I was willing to create, and the reason for that, I think, is because anytime you write anything that's meant to appeal to other people, it's got to be based on some sort of emotion that people are sympathetic to. And it just seemed like if there was anything that happened throughout the pandemic is everybody got so insular that our experiences became so idiosyncratic that it became hard to relate to people. You know, we have the one thing in common for sure. You know, we're all in the pandemic and there's like a lot of fear and division and all this. But really, everybody just kind of turtled away, and maybe somebody in their family went crazy, or maybe somebody died, or whatever it was. But it became hard to find common ground conceptually, I found. And it wasn't until I started touring again where I was able to sort of reconnect with the things about the work that makes it appealing to others. For example, that project I did during the puzzle was essentially about the pandemic, but it was such a insular and strange project that I was able to really go far into my own process for that. I realized by putting it out that, well, there's not a lot of people that are going to relate to that. So, you know, I think it was interesting. Like you say, there's a lot of people that just kind of lost the muse. And I don't find I did lose it, but I did have to make sure it was in the right place. Yeah.
And what was that first show back like? Do you remember where you were, where it was, all that?
Yeah, so we got offered the opportunity to headline this festival in the UK called Bloodstock. You know, folk festival.
Yeah.
And
Clearly, yeah.
yeah, man. But I had to quarantine for 2 weeks, so we went to the hotel, and I had to get a UK band to learn the material and a UK crew to do it. So I spent all this time sort of making all the tracks and all the learning that I could send off to a group of people that I had never played with. Like I'd never played with any of these guys. And then we had 3 rehearsals and then a warm-up show in Manchester. And then we headlined this big festival, man, with a bunch of people I've never met. And
wow.
Yeah, there was a certain point during that process where I remember thinking, like, man, this past few years is fucking crazy, man. Like, I can't.
Yeah, that's nuts.
But it also is one of those things where, because it had been so crazy, when they offered the scenario, I was like, yeah, sure. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like,
we'll make it happen. Well, yeah.
what's the worst that could happen, right? So,
Yeah.
so the first show was in Manchester, and it was really weird. Cool though, but really weird. No one knew what to do. I didn't know what to do. The audience didn't know what to do. And then the next show was Bloodstock, and it was this big outdoor festival, and you know, we're the last band on, and to try and make it special for people, we had hired a bunch of people that had made animatronic elephants, like these massive elephants, and you know, people dressed up like gorillas to try and replicate this video that we had done. But again, with no real rehearsal, pulling that all together at the last moment was fun, man. It was stressful, but it worked. And by the time that show was over, I remember thinking, I'm glad we did this, because I had forgotten how important, you know, because you're connecting with people ultimately by making music, and live music is where that really happens. And it had been a while.
And you must be like in a good groove right now. You're out with Dream Theater, of course, right?
Yeah.
Exactly. Like, that is a great bill, man. And leaders as well, like deadly.
And it's really humbling as well, because Dream Theater chose Animals and us to do this, and I mean, it's a big vote of confidence for us, because they're a much bigger band than we are. So to have that endorsement by what is, I guess, arguably like sort of the top of that sort of prog rock, prog metal heap, has been really, like, I mean, I'm just very, I don't even know the word, man. I'm just very thankful for it. There's been so many times through my career, it's like my work has been viewed as this kind of oddball thing that you know, maybe the humor overshadows the work or what have you, but to have somebody say, no, we endorse this and here it is, and you can use our PA in a sense, you know, it's like we're playing these really nice venues, and we're in Laval, Quebec today at, you know, Bell Place. It's this big new arena, and they've got this big new PA, and they don't limit what we can do and what we can't do, and it's very generous of them, and it's been very, very nice for us as well, I have to say.
Yeah, the tour's rolling through Vancouver on July 21st. How many dates are you on there?
It's 6 weeks in total. We've been out for about three and a half now, I guess.
Yeah,
And
killer.
yeah, it is. It is a very strange mental state to be in, to be on tour, though, especially after the pandemic, and as I get older, and I've got a bunch of things lined up for my next sort of projects and it's not till 2025, and as such, it requires a lot of prep. And to do the live show again, you really have to shift yourself. You have to leave home, and you have to leave the kids, and you have to leave the dog and the work and the parents and all this stuff. And it's like an alternate reality in a weird way. And it's one that I I'm adept enough at to do, but there's some people that live for that sort of thing. And the reasons why I like it is I love to play the music and I love to connect to people. But man, the whole touring lifestyle I've never been, particularly great at it, right? Shitting in a truck stop after, I had a bidet seat. I don't know if we talked about it last time, but that's what I had. I got it for Christmas a couple years back, and it's, that's just like it's a small example of like, when you're at home, you're like, oh yeah, the toilet's right there, and you just go take a shit.
Yeah, you don't shit on the bus.
You don't shit on the bus. You don't shit on the bus. So when you're out here, like the first 2 weeks is me just remembering how to like navigate my internal poo-poo clock, right? But I think I'm there.
Did we talk about your first concert when you were here in studio last time?
I don't think so.
What was your first concert?
Johnny Cash at Expo 86.
Johnny Cash. Wow.
Yeah, man. Yeah.
That's
I loved it.
What do you remember about that day?
You could have put a cutout of him up there, and he would have interacted with the audience about as much.
Wow, really, eh?
Well, it was June Carter Cash too, and she was like doing pirouettes around him. She was the one doing all the talking, and he's just like playing Folsom Prison Blues. But I loved Johnny Cash. It was like a big deal for me too. So. But I guess the first real, I'd seen Billy Joel and a bunch of other things, but the first real like metal concert that I saw was the Injustice for All and the Cult at the PNE Coliseum.
Okay.
I must have been in grade 10 or grade 11, and I remember being like, wow, that's fucking epic, man.
Yeah, totally, right? Because Injustice is so like the time changes and like just insane songs.
Well, it was even less about the bands, as much as I really loved Metallica, which I did. I wasn't even familiar with that album as much. I was still stuck on a couple prior, but it was the environment. It just seemed so like, I don't even know the word. It's like the scale of the arena shows were just so interesting. It was like a communal experience, and it was like a real, I don't even have the words for it, but I came away from it thinking that it was the environment that was so inspiring. It just seemed so massive, and it also made me realize at an early age, like, well, the resonance of an arena or a big place is going to translate certain types of songs better than others. Like if you're doing really fast, death metal or something, and you're in a bigger place, it just turns to mush because of the way that the reflections go. If things are too fast, there's no time for the sound to travel. But if you ever saw Rammstein play live, regardless of what you think of the music, they structured their music for that environment. So if you notice every snare hit, there's enough time for the resonance of the snare hit to like get to the back of the room. So like boom, pow, boom, pow, or whatever. And as a result, they sound really good in those places where, maybe Deicide wouldn't as much.
Right. Yeah.
And I remember even at the time with that Metallica show being like, oh, that's really interesting. The slower parts sound really big, right? So I ended up writing a lot of the material that I wrote on the Ocean Machine record based on that experience, I think.
Hmm.
Yeah.
We talked about, working with Chad Kroeger last time.
Yeah.
But I got a bunch of fan questions for this time around.
Sure.
And Claire wanted to kind of know how he got involved and all that kind of stuff. I know we talked about that in the last one, but maybe just to kind of refresh this time.
Sure. Well, it's interesting, it's like, it's a small industry and much smaller the longer you stay in it, because you have to be either sociopathic or stupid or both to be involved with it for as long as we have.
B, or C.
Yeah. So, or all three, which I'm probably going to have to vote for. But it became really in vogue for many years to bash on Nickelback, and I had been critical of him because I had heard that he was critical of my work years ago, and so I was just like, all right, fuck that guy or whatever. But then, 25 years passes or whatever, and then I had heard the new song, and I remember thinking, oh, they're really good. And then I saw them play live, and I was like, dude, this band is really good. This isn't like an ironic statement to say that that's a talented group of guys, right? And so I put up a thing on Twitter saying that. I said, maybe I've been critical in the past, but I was wrong about that, and I think they're actually really talented, and I think they're really a good band. And I just put it up on Twitter without thinking much about it, and then I got a text from him. I guess he got my number from a mutual friend. He said, hey, I saw that you wrote something nice, and I just want to say I appreciate it. I said, yeah, I was critical in the past, but I had heard that you had kind of been critical of my work. And he goes, oh yeah, probably. So at that point I was like, oh, maybe we can hang out. So we spent a bunch of time hanging out, and then he sang on the Empath record. But I also realized really quickly with Chad that it's like the reason why he's the success that he is, and the reason why he is as popular and has sold as many records as he has and is able to write these songs that he does, is because he's wired in a way that I'm just not. Like, he's a very dominant personality. He's really intense, and he's frighteningly intelligent, you know what I mean? It's really, and then after a while, I just found that when we kind of investigated each other for a while, like a couple of strange insects, I think that there was a mutual respect, but I think at that point we were like, okay, I think what we've both needed to see here, we've seen. And so it remains that I've got a lot of respect for the guy, and I think he's a genius, but also he's so much more heavy metal than I'll ever be, dude. Like, spending time with him, I was just like, by the end of it, I was like, dude, I'm exhausted. Like, I just want to listen to like yoga music and hang out with my kid, you know what I mean? I can't do this. I'm not rock and roll, man.
Just a metal overload.
I'm grateful for the experience, because it made me realize how unqualified for that kind of position in the industry I actually am. I can't do that. It's like, I don't want to do that. So, so thanks, Chad.
And so how long was he in studio with you, doing some backup?
He didn't. I just sent him some tracks, and he woke up one day completely hungover, and and screamed them into a mic and sent them back to me saying, I don't know how these sound. I'm still drunk. And and it sounded great. He's got a super strong voice.
Yeah.
And that was it, man. I think it's like, I got so much respect for like the process of writing commercial music. It's an art form, and when it's as much a science as it is an art. And I can't do it. Like, it's not what I do. And I'm fascinated by people who not only can, but do it with heart. And that's where he's at. But I also realize that it's not my scene, and it was good for me to learn that, actually, because perhaps on some level I thought it would be interesting to try it. Like, maybe, who knows, like maybe I would be good at it. But it was through my experiences with Chad where I recognized that he's in the position he is in his life and in his work because he is who he is. And that's what it is, man. That's what it is.
Yeah.
But
Devin, tell us about Dream Piece.
Yeah, that's the fundamental difference between Chad and I, I'd say. I think the reason why I've written brutal metal for much of my career is because I'm wired to be hypersensitive to my environment. Like, everything affects me too much. Volume affects me too much. Food, people, alcohol, drugs, it all affects me in ways that I watch other people. How can you do that, man? Like, it's, people are like, now they're just like, oh, cannabis is legal. Just take a gummy. It'll help you go to sleep. I know you got insomnia. So I'm like, all right, I'll take a gummy. And it's like roulette, man. It just spins me out. I'm like, this is the opposite of what I was hoping for. So as a result of me being that sensitive, I think I interpreted my environment in a way that when I wrote metal, it was like super extreme, because that's how I feel things. It's like everything's extreme all the time. But what I'm actually looking for beyond extremity is just peace. That's what I want. That's what I've been looking for since the beginning. So I started making ambient music specifically to help me sleep. And so I set up a place in the studio, and I have for many years, where in the morning when I'm drinking coffee, I make loops on guitar. Oh, you see in the corner here, you see over there, like that's it. So
the computer in the corner there.
I have it set up everywhere, and I constantly make like the ambient music. And I never thought of sharing it because I just used it to help me sleep. So at night, whatever I wrote in the morning, I put in the headphones while I'm sleeping, and I listen to it, and it helps me sleep. But then I started realizing, as over the course of the pandemic, as I've been working through all this material that I've been writing, and the last record I did, is that actually that type of music I enjoy doing as much or potentially more than any of the other things that I do. So I thought I would just release it. And so in a couple weeks, in a couple weeks it comes out. I've got 7 albums full of material that it's for meditation or yoga or helping people sleep.
Yeah.
And
I look forward to hearing it, man.
Yeah, it's on some level, I think people would listen to Alien or City from Strapping and Lad and be completely confused as to how it would come from the same person. But on the other hand,
oh, totally,
I think some people might listen to Alien or City and be like, oh, that makes perfect sense why he's doing that now. But I'm also doing, in 2025, I'm doing a symphony with the Netherlands orchestra and choir that I've been writing for a while, called The Moth. That's like a full symphony with and I'm deep in the writing of that too. But
dude, that's so crazy, right? Like, most people can't like put their head around, like, I know plans in 2025. Like, we're summer of 23, dude.
I've got a bunch of people. I mean, I'm with you, and it's not me that set it up, so that's probably why I can wield this in a conversation like I'm doing it on purpose. But it's the management that set it up, and so, you know,
You're
and
on
for
for the
me,
ride.
it's great though, man. It's like I love my work. I love being able to continue doing it. I love the fact that I'm surrounded by great people, and that I'm able to do this. And I love the fact that, you know, the work that I've been doing, on one day we can spend time with people who write commercial music, like, you know, like Chad, and then the next day we're doing prog metal with Dream Theater, and then we're doing orchestra stuff, and then we're doing, you know, I go back to UK in a couple of weeks, and we do a festival that's like a technical death metal festival, and then, you know what I mean? It's like, I love it, man. I love music. I really do.
Yeah, dude.
I just woke up too clearly, so I'm sorry if I'm a little groggy, man.
Not at all. Not at all. Life's been good to me so far.
Have you ever heard that
Um,
song that he did called "I Like Big Tits"? Have you heard that song by Joe Walsh?
no.
Dude, if you go on, I'll go on YouTube and go Joe Walsh. I think it's ILBT. It's They showed it to me the other day. He wrote a song about big tits. That's what it is. So, yeah,
Who doesn't?
yeah. Well,
And so, and where does like the Ziltoid, the Omniscient, like where does that fall into your day to day, or like
we just did a comic book series with Ziltoid, and for those who don't know, I have a character that I've made a couple of records about. Who's an alien from another dimension that looks, you know, suspiciously like the Skeksis from Dark Crystal, and his whole modus operandi is to subjugate humanity so he can get all the coffee from the planet, because it's like Dune, I guess, where it's the thing that can help him bend space. And I guess I wrote him when my son was born, because I couldn't figure out how that had happened. I mean, I knew how it happened technically.
I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, but on like a fundamental level, it just, like, the whole idea of having kids, as I'm sure you can relate to, it's just like, after years of being a banana, it was like, holy fuck, man, like,
Yeah.
what is this? And so I guess I was compelled on on an artistic level to, I guess, objectify that by making a creature that was sort of a representation of who I had thought I was during the whole strapping era, so that I could kind of say, okay, what happened? And then I wrote Ziltoid, and then when I got through that part of the process, I guess I kind of, not abandoned him, but he's on a planet somewhere right now waiting to be called back, and I don't know if I'll call him back. But
Right.
they're telling me I got to wrap up because I got another
Okay.
thing.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
Brother,
All right,
it's
Devin.
great to see you, man. Your
Yeah, it's good to see
mustache
you,
and
buddy.
beard, man, is like,
I know, right? It's
awesome.
probably coming off though for the summer, man. It's probably coming
Yeah.
off.
You doing
So,
okay though? Everything all right?
yeah, I'm doing great, man. Yeah. Life's
Yeah,
good.
so-
You know, no complaints. You know, work's good. BCIT's, you know, the radio course is great.
Amazing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the podcast is hauling along. I just got signed to a network out of New York called Realm.
No shit.
Yeah, so things
Good
are
for
going.
you, man. That's amazing. Well, I'll tell you, I mean, at some time, I hope to see you in person again, and congrats for making it through the past 3 years, and
Yeah,
here's to
ditto.
another 3.